It's my pleasure now to introduce one of the NHL all-time greats, Walter Tkaczuk.
Take me out to the ball. No, that's the wrong sport. Oh, the good old hockey game.
The good old hockey game.
And the best game you can name
is the good old hockey game. You like that song?
First time I heard it.
Okay, I was reading that great knowledgeable thing, Wikipedia, that you weren't born in Canada. Where were you born?
I was born in Germany.
Germany.
My parents were both Ukrainian, and they were kind of moving around at the time, and I decided to come out in Germany, Amsterdam. And about 3 years later, my father came to Canada and earned some money to bring his wife and me to Canada. We grew up, spent the rest of our time up in South Porcupine, up by Timmins.
Okay, right.
And the community was about the same size as St. Mary's, about 3,000 people at that time. And my father was a laborer, and he worked in the mines for most of his life.
Yeah. So how did you get started playing hockey?
Just like all the young kids here in St. Mary's, in the wintertime you play hockey, in the summertime you're swimming, you're playing baseball and soccer, and it was just a fun sport to do in the wintertime. Of course, winter up in South Porcupine was a little longer than it is down here.
Yeah, natural ice too.
A lot of natural ice.
Now, when did you realize that you were a pretty good hockey player, that people were discovering you as a talent?
I didn't even realize it the whole time I was playing hockey. I was just enjoying myself. I went out there to play hockey. My parents would say, "What does it cost to play hockey?" And it was all free up north. The Dome Mine, they paid for the ice, and all you had to do is buy your skates. And I think my first pair of shin pads was a magazine that I put on my shins.
What do you use for a cup?
No cups. We didn't have a raise.
So you held your stick in the right place. Okay. How old were you when you went to the Kitchener Rangers?
They asked me when I was going on 16 to come out and try out for the Kitchener Green Shirts, which was the B team in Kitchener. And they said, "Well, we're just going to look at you, and then we're going to send you back in the following year. You maybe can make it." What happened was they saw me and said, "Well, we'll put you on the fourth line." And so I was 16 when I came down. I played 2 years with the Kitchener Green Shirts, and also we came to play the Lincolns.
Yes.
The Green Shirts played the Lincolns at that time. And I remember sitting in the bus, my partner and I, Danny Sagan, he came from Sudbury.
Right.
And we're still partners, and we have a golf course here in St. Mary's. We were coming over the bridge, a railroad track bridge, and it was about 6 o'clock at night. And we're looking, and there's nobody on the streets. There's snowbanks, and I said to Danny, "Who'd live in this town?" 5 years later, we bought a farm, just like this, and we've been here for the last 50 years, and we're still there.
And then you got the call to play for the New York Rangers. What was it like when you first moved to New York City, a boy from South Porcupine?
I remember going into the city and just, I was in awe. Your head was up in the air all the time, just looking up. After about a week or so, you just got used to everything. In New York, when you go to the deli or something to get a sandwich, you go to the counter, they get the sandwich, and you pay it, they say, next, next, next. When you come back here to St. Mary's, you go buy something, you can talk to somebody behind the counter for a minute or two, but in New York, everything's busy, busy, busy.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, for the first 2 seasons, they didn't pronounce your name the right way.
Yeah.
Walt Tkaczuk.
Tkaczuk, yeah. What happened was in Kitchener, I had one of our coaches there, Steve Briklicich. He was coaching in the American Hockey League, and there was a person there that his name was similar to mine, and it was Tkaczuk. So when he came to Kitchener, instead of saying Tkaczuk, it was too hard for him to say Tkaczuk. He says, "I'm calling you Tkaczuk," and it stuck. So then, when I was playing, finally got into the NHL, McFarland interviewed me between periods, and he said, "We're going to have Walter Tkaczuk come in between period 1 and 2, and blah, blah, blah." So I come in, and first thing he says to me, so how do you pronounce your name? I said, Walter Tkaczuk, and then he went on with his interview. And as I left and I was walking and leaving from him, he said, and we just interviewed Walter Tkaczuk of the New York Rangers.
Because it was, how long did it take to get it right then?
I think the last 8 years. It was about seven years
Okay.
that stuck with me.
Now, what was it like playing for the Rangers? Did you have a good bunch of guys?
Well, we had a fantastic team. There was a lot of good teams there. You had the Montreal Canadiens were really strong. The Boston Bruins were strong with Esposito and Bobby Orr. We were strong with John Urtel, Brad Park, Eddie Jackman, Hatfield, Gilbert. Chicago had Bobby Howells and Tony Esposito, and Boston had Phil Esposito, Cashman. They were really good teams, and all the teams were good. And what happened was you become really, really close because you have to fight and stick together against these other guys. And once you play with these guys and they're on your back and helping you, you become lifetime friends.
Were you much of a fighter?
No, I would probably get a fight a year.
And would you ever get in a moment where you say, holy smokes, what have I got myself into?
I'll tell you one. So we're playing Boston, and Boston, Cashman is you're kind of a tough guy with the Boston Bruins, and it's in the playoffs, and it's in New York. We're coming around the net, and I know we're going to run into each other, and we do, and we hit, and all of a sudden he drops his gloves, and he got the first couple of punches in, and I guess he won that fight. The next game we were playing in Boston, and that was probably the day after. There was a rest day. Same scenario, coming around as here we go again. Bang, we hit, but I dropped mine first, and I figured I won that one. So we're even on that. So 20 years later, after I'm retired, Cash is retired, we're at a fundraiser up in Kingston, and we're sitting having a drink, and Cash says to me, "Do you remember when you suckered me in Boston?" I said, "No, I didn't suck you." I said, "I got the first punch in. You got the first punch in New York, I got the first one in Boston."
Now, in 1972, you were asked to play for Team Canada, but you declined because you were running a hockey school. Is that something you regret today?
No, not really. What happened was I played against the Russians and the Czechs, through the years. And that trip going to Russia, or them coming here and then going to Russia, it was just like we're going to go have a good time. Nobody realized what that series meant. Now it's part of history for Canada. But what happened was I was running a hockey school in St. Mary's, and we were putting through 100 kids a week. And I had made a commitment, to be with these kids, to be on the ice once a day with them. So I went to the training camp in Toronto, and I said, I'd like to, work out with the Team Canada. I said, they practice twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. I said, I'll come to one in the morning or the afternoon. I'll go on the ice with the kids in the morning, then go to Toronto for the afternoon. They said, no, we need total commitment. I said, well, you've got a lot of good players. And Bobby Clark, I think he came in and took over my spot there.
Right. Now, what's the highlight of your career? What are some of the best moments of your career?
Well, I don't think I got really the best one. I guess it would be to win the Stanley Cup. I went to the finals twice,
Yeah.
but we were shy. I think Montreal beat us at one time, and then Boston beat us the other time. But I think the thing that I really liked is the friends that I met as teammates and the friends off the ice also.
So there must have been some real characters in the game then. Can you tell me about one or two of them? Who was the craziest character you ever faced?
I can't tell you. They're all off ice stuff, and I can't talk about that. My wife's in the audience.
Okay. And an eye injury suddenly ended your career. What was it like to have your career just end in one moment like that?
Yeah, we were playing the Los Angeles Kings, and the puck came up. He hit me right in the eye. There was quite a bit of swelling there right away. They wanted to get the swelling out of it, but they couldn't, and so I lost the sight of central vision in my left eye. So, and I didn't want to continue and take a chance of losing the other one because I could still see with one eye.
Yeah.
I was quite lucky because Craig Patrick was the general manager and coach of the Rangers at the time. And after I got out of the hospital and recovering, and I was watching the game between the benches, Craig Patrick said, "Why don't you come behind the bench and just talk to the players?" I said, "What do you want me to talk to them about?" He said, "Well, if you see him doing something that you think you can improve things, just talk to him." I said, "Okay." So I stood behind the bench and I'd see a player maybe letting his check go, and that went on for a couple of weeks. And then a few weeks later, Craig Patrick says, "Why don't you change the defense? I'll change the forwards." I said, "Okay." So then I was changing the defense. He was doing the forwards, and then he said, "I want to change the defense. You change the forwards." So I was still involved with hockey, not in playing, but still involved with him.
So now you're currently the owner of the River Valley Golf Course and tubing.
Yeah.
And how did you get into that?
Well, by accident. When we bought the property, it was we built the camp for the hockey school. We weren't farmers. It's very rolling hills, so we planted 40,000 trees, assorted trees. 20 years later, we decided we either had to do something with the property or sell it. And I think my wife said, "Why don't you consider putting a golf course in?" I said, "I don't know, too much work." So I waited 2 more years so I got a little older, and then my partner and I, Danny Sagan, we went out and built the golf course. It took us about 3 years. We feel pretty proud about the golf course because we actually jumped on the bulldozers. We actually drove the dump trucks. And then we got a guy out of Toronto that came in and did all the contouring of it.
If you had to sum up your life, including hockey and out of hockey, in one sentence, what would you say?
But a great life. A great life.
Yeah. Very good. Well, we got somebody here who's a fan of yours. Get something, can you sign something?
Okay.
And who are you?
Leslie Edney.
Yeah, I know who you are, but they don't know. So we have, what do you have there, Leslie?
I have a 1971-72 card of yours, Walter. If you could sign that, I know somebody who would really appreciate it. Happy anniversary, baby.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Walter, thank you for coming to the show.
Good, man. Thank you.